back to Let's Take 5, the podcast where we pick a cinema legend and take 5 of their films to highlight their excellence and range. My name is Austin Luger.
My name is Eric Martindale.
And we are now at our 5th entry for the Pixar 5.
Our 40th episode.
It's true. It's our 40th episode.
Round number there.
It's very nice. Mm-hmm. Which happens at the end of every other one of these.
That's true.
But in case it's your first time listening to our Pixar 5, the ones we covered in the 4 previous weeks are Toy Story, The Incredibles, WALL-E, Up, and today we are here to discuss Inside Out. Inside Out is the 2015 Pixar film, directed by Pete Docter, whose last film was Up, which we did last week. This is the story of Riley, a girl who is moved to a new town with their parents, and all of the action really takes place within her own mind. The main characters are the emotions that she feels, which are actual characters. Joy, sadness, fear, anger, and disgust are the 5 main ones, and we meet a couple more on the way, as sadness is and joy are taken out of the main frame of kind of her mind, and they have to get back to helping out Riley, because she's becoming sadder and sadder as she's dealing with leaving her friends behind, leaving her hockey team behind, and just adjusting to a new life.
Yeah, this is a really good movie. I always end up finding a way to see Pixar films in theaters. I don't necessarily mean to or even want to, but I always end up doing it. In this particular instance, I was out of town, and there was a dollar movie theater. You know, those are still around some places, and they were playing Inside Out, which I don't know. The thing may have been out on DVD by that point, but we went and saw it. My girlfriend and I liked this quite a bit. I thought that Mr. Doctor. I thought that he continued a continuity of excellence from Up onto this picture. I personally found that Inside Out and Up to be Pixar's two best films. So, with that said, I don't know if that has. I'm sure it has a lot to do with Pixar, but it has also a lot to do with Pete Docter. So,
and the film he made with Pixar before those two was Monsters, Inc., which I think is a lot of fun. But it's always kind of a bit lower tier for me, that one.
I feel like it's forgotten, too.
Yeah, but it has some really inventive moments in that.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think that is a good movie, and we'll talk more about it on probably the Pixar wrap-up. But I kind of see how that was sort of a stepping point to Up and then to Inside Out. I do prefer Up to this movie. Thematically speaking, I think that Inside Out, I'm going to get kind of lofty here a little bit, but Inside Out does something I think pretty interesting. Just bear with me here. So recently we saw Silence, and we saw a review on Silence that talked about how movies challenge our way of thinking as opposed to movies that we hope are challenging other people's way of thinking. Like Silence versus Hidden Figures. Like, I go into Hidden Figures getting something that I fundamentally expected to get, and I hope it changes someone else's mind. And those are the movies we're seeing a lot more of, rather than something that's sort of challenging us in the way we think.
This was an article written by film critic Hulk, and we will include it in the show notes.
Yeah, please, yes. And I thought that was very astute, and that's part of why I don't see as many movies in theaters as I used to. I think Inside Up was the first type of movie to sort of, like, kind of do that for me, sort of make me think about, loftier themes about what makes a well-rounded individual, about all these emotions that we use daily, that we kind of need all of them. Jim Valvano, a great college basketball coach, said that, throughout your day, you should spend some time in thought. You should spend some time laughing, and you should spend some time crying. If you've done all those 3 things, you've had a hell of a day. And
I like that a lot.
Yeah, and I thought that too. And this movie actually sort of made me think in ways that I think the Pixar envelope didn't get pushed. For instance, like a movie like WALL-E, again, is a film that sort of gives you something and you hope changes someone else's mind rather than encouraging me to think sort of for myself, if that makes sense.
It does. I still like WALL-E more, but Inside Out was my, this is such an important ranking, but my number 1 film of that year.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It made my list.
Yeah.
Oh me. But what I found so interesting about it is kind of what you're saying. because it's something that I struggle with in my life. Because at this point now in Riley's head, Joy is in charge. She is the leader of the other emotions, and due to that, and all the other emotions truly believe that Joy should be in charge, and they're all worried when Joy has left the central control room, and she needs to get back because a life full of joy is the only kind of life worth living. It's what they kind of all see.
That's what they believe, yes.
What's amazing is when you have these characters, especially when you have characters like fear and disgust and anger, you would think these are kind of more like negative emotions, and someone like anger would be like the villain of the piece. But they're all just perspectives. There actually is no antagonist in this movie, which is amazing and very hard to structure, because you look at anger and disgust, and everyone's goal is to have Riley to have the best life possible. Anger is looking out for Riley every time. Disgust looking for Riley every time. There's different ways of voicing that. And the more I keep watching the film, the more I'm impressed by how their dialogue and actions are so consistent with that. They don't just kind of like do a more joyful act. No, they are always going to be this. And even Sadness, loves Riley. She is part of Riley.
Of course.
And wants that to happen.
And that ends up being sort of the big emotional arc of the movie, is that Joy realizing, because Joy in a lot of ways is the actual protagonist of the film. I mean, Riley is the actual human they're in control over, but Joy's journey is the one that fundamentally changes, because Joy thinks that she should be in control, because when Riley's happy, we're all happy, right? It's like if the lead, they say, whenever you're in an argument with your spouse, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Like Joy, we want to be happy. That's sort of what we sort of ascribe to being the goal of life, is to find joy in life.
Riley, weirdly enough, is the setting.
Exactly.
Which is crazy.
Yes, Riley is the setting, and so Joy has to realize and find out that Joy needs to rely on the other emotions as well. Because joyness and sadness, I mean, like, green and red make a color. It's sort of like that.
And it's such a fun movie because it's essentially, the thesis of the film is to make the argument for sadness, which is a very profound thing to do in children's film. A profound thing to do, really, in any film.
You're right. That is exactly at the core. If you were trying to sum up what the movie was about in one sentence, that's exactly what the movie's about.
And it does it in interesting ways, and kind of two examples of the film using sadness over joy as kind of what's the best emotion in the moment. When Bing-Bong is crying,
Bing-Bong is her imaginary friend,
right?
From
Who's like 5 different animals, cries candy, it's story.
Yeah.
He's crying, and Joy's jokes can't make him feel better, but sadness is like empathy and listening and kind of joining the sadness does. That is still more of an emotional abstract thing, and you can see it as, oh, that works for Bing Bong. But I think a super logical moment that I just was still astounded by was when they needed Riley to wake up, and they go to the funny film set of the dreams and whatnot.
Yeah, the movie gets really bonkers.
Oh, the movie gets crazy.
Yeah.
And Joy thinks, okay, I'll make the best dream ever, and she'll be so happy she'll wake up. That doesn't make sense at all. That never has happened in anyone's dream before. You need something scary to wake you up.
Right.
And that's a more like logical approach to like, oh, happiness actually isn't the right answer here. It's a very small thing, but
no,
it's so logical.
Yeah,
that's about emotions.
That was the word I was right about to use. It does follow a grounded logic that we can sort of all relate to, which is part of what I think I was kind of getting at in the beginning as far as something challenging the way I think. Like, it's important to be happy. That's the cornerstone of life. That's what you want to be. But it's also important to be a well-rounded individual. Like, you're not just... You are living your life for yourself, but you're also you're sharing life with everyone else. Sure. And you're going to encounter... you need to be prepared to encounter different emotions. You can't go through life with your eyes closed. And this is actually taking what is, a bonker story at this point, and inventive, but, totally nuts, and saying very logically, like, when I'm having a happy dream, I don't want to wake up.
Right.
It needs to be something scary.
And it makes sense on many levels, because if Riley left town and she just kind of overjoyed, almost about getting a new hockey team right away, it brings down the emotion she had with that hockey team. Like it's very natural to feel sad about loss in a situation, and the feeling of and the power of loss in this film is so incredible. Because right now we are in the past couple Pixar films. We have Up, which is about mourning a loved one. Toy Story 3 is so much about loss and moving on. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, Cars 2 existed. And then this one. It's one of the ones, too. Jumping ahead a couple ones. But like this one looks at loss in small and big ways. The biggest one is the tragic, the really, really sad demise of Bing-Bong.
Yeah.
But also, like, what really gets me, because it gets the other emotions so well, emotions as characters, is when their whole, like, mind is falling apart. And the things that always worked as, like, connective tissue of, like, pretending to be, like, monkeys with the parents, that island, like, turns gray and falls apart.
Yeah.
Like, that joyful, silly island, or the friendship island, or the family island.
Yeah.
Watching those collapse is so tragic.
Yeah, it's devastating for the characters, the emotions as well.
Because it's values being trumped by an inability to feel correctly.
Right.
And we all go through that during tragedies in our life, but to see it played out that way, it's so cinematic too. It's a really impressive sequence.
And in a personal sort of way, you can relate to that a period in your life where you feel like you're experiencing too much anger, or you're experiencing too much sadness, or maybe even too much joy to a certain extent. You start to, in those moments, you're overwhelmed and you lose pieces of yourself. You
Right.
act out in ways that are not typical of yourself. So it is a very literal way of expressing a very real sort of problem that can arise, particularly in a situation for an adolescent girl who's just moved away from her home and away from everyone she knows and loves and cares about.
Yeah.
Give it to Pixar for taking something so, nutty and abstract, and yet applying it, doing a practical application of that. Like that's what I think as with the core, what made this movie so impressive. It feels oddly less fantasy than Up does.
That's interesting. I don't know about that.
Well, what I mean by that is that, Up exists in a tangible real world with a bird and a talking dog that fly airplanes and a house that
Right.
flies with balloons on it. That's less relatable to me than the balancing act the emotions do inside your head.
That's true. This is more grounded in reality.
And that's what I mean by it. Because the only fantasy that happens in this film is inside her head, where that's able to flourish.
Yeah.
So.
And, I thought about that also as well, because I thought this idea when I was watching this time that this is a grand adventure of a story that, as far as we know, has happened to every person on the planet. Like, there might have been like 6 billion versions of joy, not stepping down entirely, but joy sharing the emotions more as the transition from childhood onwards. And that transition, that evolution of a character is always so interesting in the movie, because they tease you early on about kind of the losses. Like, when is acceptable loss, when is not acceptable loss. The losing of the island like that is an unacceptable loss. We're upset about that. We want to get them back. But I love the little maintenance workers who are deleting memories. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, okay, presidents, keep Washington and Lincoln and the new guy. That's it. It just erases them all. Keep the double mint gum thing forever. That one's never going away. But we recognize that as that's a transition. Not everything as a child's going to be there to hear. You hopefully should get some back.
Well, it's also, again, when I say it feels more grounded, that's stuff I think we can all relate to.
Exactly.
Like, I know the jingle from Alka-Seltzer. I'm going to know it my whole life.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I could probably do 6 presidents in a row, and then I start to get hazy. I flip Madison and Monroe all the time, and then I flip my Harrisons, and then I'm screwed. Yeah. But I will remember that Lincoln's the 16th president, that Washington's the first, and and Adams is the second. And I'm not going to keep going, but but again, there's relatable. As crazy as the story is, there's actual tangible, relatable evidence for you going through the similar processes as human beings and how we do that.
And joy is the hardest one to deal with loss because there's other memories about what all the unicorns are in this TV show that likes. She's like, no, I love those kind of things, and she's the one kind of mourning these irrelevant memories. Mm-hmm. But as the audience, we don't really care about those. We kind of see that as a comedic antic of Joy, who's always right now holding too many memories because she's having to purse the whole thing,
right?
The magical bag. But then the great in between of definitely known as Islands, and we don't care about the unicorn memories, is Bing-Bong.
Yeah,
because Bing-Bong is, whereas an island is an island and a memory is just this glowing ball. Bing-Bong is a character voiced by Richard Kind, and in all practical senses, 13-year-old Riley does not need this bizarre imaginary friend that she had when she was 4 and went in a rocket ship with.
Right.
But to have a character,
a characterization of,
it's not a memory ball. It's this person fading away. Even he needs to exist in this world anymore. It gets me every time.
Yeah, it's the same sort of pathos that they work in Toy Story 3 whenever the toys are about to get incinerated, because this is every toy's ultimate destination. Mm-hmm. Bing Bong as being a direct characterization of childhood. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure I had imaginary friends when I was a kid. I don't remember them.
I never did.
I used to fight air. Like, I would pretend I was fighting stuff that wasn't there. I remember that, and rolling around on the ground, but nothing specific that I can recall. But it's still something that, it's, again, relatable humanity happening inside this world that's otherwise completely mad. Bing Bong is the only, even though he's imaginary, is the only character that's inside the brain to have actually existed outside of it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's interesting, too.
And he serves a very similar kind of mindset of the other main emotions, because his goal is always the happiness of Riley. Mm-hmm. And although he wants to be part of it, I mean, he does, selfish is the wrong word, it seems too malicious, I guess, but he wants to be there for Riley because he does love Riley and loves what they did together. Mm-hmm. And to have him fade to obscurity, literally this whole hellish pit of obscurity.
Yeah, no, it's actually kind of creepy. Yeah.
But then his final sacrifice is so beautiful because they can't get out of the pit, and he knows that joy is more important. But he uses the idea of what he represented, the joyful imagination of riding in this rocket ship. But then he leaves it, and he leaves the concept with joy to escape. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
It is.
It's an incredible story.
Pixar is, at this point, getting pretty incredible at being able to deliver these moments. I mean, they hit their beats right. They don't force anything. They let it build. They let This is more earned, I think, than Up's stuff with his wife, because everyone's going to be able to relate to that, and they can just show us pictures and images, and we're going to find that sad. But it is more akin to when he finally opens the book at the end of Up.
Yeah. And
and it feels earned, and they're great at that. They continue to be great at that. I don't know. It's weird. I hesitate to say they're at the pinnacle of their talents because they've had more misses than hits probably recently. But
this has been a big reminder of Pixar 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, when they hit though, they're grand slams.
Yeah.
So
this is, I think, a really masterful story, and it's such a incredible one. I mean, truly, the idea of accepting sadness into your life. Mm-hmm. Because so much of narrative storytelling is typically you're too sad. You need to meet the Manic Pixie Dream Girl and recognize that music is great, and you need to have montages, and now everything's happy again. That's so many stories.
Yeah.
But this is something different and silly and weird. I mean, there's a point when they have a whole tower of imaginary Canadian boyfriends who want to save Riley. And then they go through, they need the train of thought.
The train of thought, yeah.
Like, it's so many, like, clever things in every frame.
Another thing that I thought that this movie did outside of a story is more relating to the setting. I think that Riley is a great example of the type of characters you like sort of breaking down gender roles. Mm-hmm. Because, like, whereas Brave, I think, is kind of like something that's a bad example of trying to do that.
Oh, interesting.
This is a better one. I don't notice it like I notice it in Brave. Like, in this movie, it's so... She plays hockey, right?
Yeah.
You would associate that to being a male-dominated thing. Mm-hmm. She's... I saw where I was reading about the film, they deliberately avoided colors like pink and stuff like that when creating the film, and it was the first Disney/Pixar film to have a crew that worked on the film that was equal as far as men and women working on the picture.
There were 3 screenwriters, and 2 are male, but I know Meg Lefave. I heard a really good hour-long interview with her on a podcast, and she seemed to be heavily involved, and in just a way that I wish I could work at Pixar, because they spend a year or 2 before they animate, just working the story, and they she spent so many time with Pete Docter just trying to figure out how the mythology works.
Yeah, apparently this was a lot more crazier than it actually ended up being.
Yeah,
but I just thought it was really impressive how they went about that.
Brave also had a weird history where. This happened before in Pixar history, where they had replaced the director.
Yeah.
So it went from a female to a male director for Brave.
Yeah.
Which is strange.
Probably.
Don't know the whole story for that one yet. But.
Yeah, it just seems like, and I've talked to you about this before, girls should be able to do things that girls can do and boys can do without me feeling like... When I get bothered is when I see female characters portraying... doing awesome things, but they're just things that men have done already. Like treading new water, I think, is usually the better way to go about it.
You need the fresh perspective. You need the fresh take on it.
Yeah, you can't strip their femininity away and then say, "Look at how awesome this woman is." That bothers me. Let them be female and great, if that makes sense.
No, I just caught the end of a Resident Evil film. Oh God, that's the exact example of they're barely characters, but just everyone in the room doing the exact same cool action move, no matter anything about their background.
Yeah, that's why I like Cersei Lannister better than Brienne of Tarth. No. We've talked about that as far as Game of Thrones.
Which is Game of Thrones.
Yes.
For you listeners. We make sure there's still a microphone in front of us.
Yeah, no. But yeah, and I don't know. I thought it was an impressive way of doing that what I thought was very, very naturally.
I wanted to say, I do think this is a masterpiece. I guess I'm going to now say that masterpieces do have flaws. There's one thing I don't love about this movie, and I think it's always, because I don't have enough time to really flesh it out, when they go into other people's heads, it's super stereotypical cliche. The parents, their argument at the dinner table was ugh, and at the end too, it just felt like...
I thought that may have been maybe something. Yes, they're cheap. I thought the end was funny.
The end with the animals.
The animals is great, and then
high schoolers and whatnot.
It's a girl talking to you for the first time, and that just.
Yeah,
it's an explosion. Yeah, no, I thought that was all great. The parents one was probably a gag in the middle of a movie they thought was getting a little too serious at that moment. That's what that felt like to me, like some levity. I did laugh about that, but I did also think that when you're 13 years old, which Riley is in the movie, I think, you're something like that.
Yeah.
You're building your personality still in a way that you're not necessarily doing that when you're an adult. Also, I think it stands to reason that my own personality shuts down a bit when I'm watching the Green Bay Packers.
That's true.
So it didn't seem
I can already picture which on your emotions take a nap at that point.
Yes, exactly.
It's anger and fear.
Anger, fear, and joy are hanging out. Disgust when the refs make a bad call.
And then they all go away so sadness can reign.
Exactly. That's usually how it ends up happening. But I think that if I could make an argument for the lore of Inside Out. I think that's probably what's going on there. Because it sets precedent for that that's expanded on later. Like, he's thinking about, like, a football game, right?
Yeah, but, like, he's, like, one of his emotions, like, do we need the toilet seat down? You know, up or, like, it's that kind of stuff. And, like, she keeps thinking about that hot, like, Puerto Rican pilot kind of thing. And she should leave him for, like, it feels like Home Improvement episode.
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere. Which I don't mind Home Improvement, but, like...
JTT?
I feel like two different worlds going on.
Yeah, I guess I can see an argument for that. I think it sets it up and then delivers on it later at the end of the film in a way that I kind of like. And I love them being inside the dogs and cat's head. I thought that was hilarious.
The cat one was amazing because having like, none of them in control and then just one walking
on
over,
the board.
And then just like hits one button, then it cuts back to reality and the cat just like freaks out and runs away. I like that as the reasoning for why cats are just doing seemingly random things.
Yeah, and the dog's focused on treats, right, or food.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, of all the movies on the podcast, this is like the first one I hadn't rewatched and had not seen since the only time I saw it. So as I'm regressing and thinking back a little bit, I couldn't remember.
You've done just fine, man.
I think I did okay. I thought I did well for that. But I do think, like I said, I do think that this is one of the best that they've done.
I agree. And this was a good one to end on. So this is our last of the Pixar 5. But if you tune back in on Wednesday, we will do our typical Pixar wrap-up for about 20 minutes or so, where we just talk about Pixar's entire canon and announce our next 5, which will be very exciting. Until then, you can do a whole bunch of things. You want to say what they are? Or do you want
Oh, no, yeah.
I just realized I kind of keep taking it away from you.
Yeah, don't do that, man.
Yeah.
You can write to us at letstake5@theartimmortal.com. Or you can tweet at us at The Immortals Pod. That's the Twitter handle. The Immortals is another podcast on the network that Austin's going to tell you about right now.
Yep. This is a podcast where we review the 1001 movies, albums, food, songs, children's books, and TV shows that you must consume before you die. The episode that came out yesterday, episode 61, we're here covering Monty Python the Holy Grail and Prince's Sign of the Times.
Okay, and there's a new podcast on the network. There's a new
one now. It has 2 episodes. Ad Absurdum. It is a legal pop culture podcast where a couple lawyers take a movie and discuss what the hell's going on there legally. And the January episode is The Truman Show, and it's awesome.
Okay, well, that's that. Yeah, you can find me at Constant Diversion. That's my YouTube channel. I review video games on that website. And I think that about wraps us up.
I think it does wrap us up even.
Okay. It was a good 5.
I thought so too. All right, so we'll see you all again on Wednesday. My name's Austin Luger.
My name's Eric Martindale.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Wait, Joy, you could get lost in there.
Think positive.
Okay. I'm positive you will get lost in there. That's long-term memory. An endless warren of corridors and shelves. I read about it in the manuals.
The manuals? The manuals! You read the manuals!
Yeah.
So you know the way back to headquarters.
I guess.
You are my map. Let's go. Lead on, mind map. Show me where we're going.
Okay, only I'm too sad to walk. Just give me a few hours. Oh!
Which way? Left?
Right. No, I mean go left. I said left was right, like correct.
Okay.
This actually feels kind of nice.
Okay, here we go. We'll be back to headquarters before morning. We can do it. This'll be easy. This is working.